Formula One race at the famous Mugello circuit for the first time today, and the Italian track has definitely left a lasting impression on all of us. Welcome back to the Formula One Grid Talk podcast. Today we're reviewing the absolutely mesmeric Tuscan GP. We are powered by the F1 Chronicle. Visit f1chronicle.com for news, reviews and opinions on all things F1. Hosting today will be me, George Howson, and joining me today are sports journalist Dev Tyagi, F1 YouTuber Steph Wentworth.
Hey.
And F1 YouTuber Peter Mujuzi.
What's happening, people? All good?
Very good after that race. That was something else. After Italy, we kind of thought maybe Mugello won't perform with the only one overtaking spot, but it was absolutely something else. Instead of going from the winner down like normal, I think it's right probably to focus on the crashes, and there were many of them. Let's go with the one off the line though, going into, I think it was turn 2, turn 3. Peter, I mean, it all really started with Max Verstappen, who seemed to have a problem with his engine from the start and dropped really far back, and it was just a massive cluster something. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, no, I thought the exact same thing. I mean, bloody hell, what's happened to this Red Bull car as a whole? You know, Max has been complaining about power all season, and maybe this is why we've not got anything out of Albon throughout the entire season, except for, you know, later on today. But it's just such a frustrating time for every Max Verstappen fan, because somehow, by the way, he's won a race this season, which is, you know, I find this even hard to believe. But the car there is something mechanically wrong, and it was just such a shame to see him sliding the way he was. I think Brundle on the TV said he was going backwards. That's how awkward and terrible the car was. But yeah, it started what you would call the cluster, as you said. And yeah, you know, one thing after another. It was a great, entertaining start, don't get me wrong, because it's like we've not had a crash really in the first few corners of the race this season. So to see that, I thought, oh, brilliant. But then when you see it's Max, you thought, deep down, you know, this is a heartbreaking moment because he's the only one challenging the top. So it was a bittersweet moment. It was good to see some action. But yeah, it was an awful crash. Just glad nobody left really injured or seriously injured, so at least we kept them there. But yeah, Max unfortunately unlucky, and he tried his best to get out of that gravel, didn't he? And once he got in there, those stones were just going to, you know, hit him all over the face. So unlucky for Max.
Yeah, as Logan Sargent unfortunately found out in Formula 3, you can't really get out of that gravel trap. It's far too deep. Yeah, unfortunately for Max Verstappen, he just couldn't get out of there, but probably would have retired anyway with an engine problem. Also retiring in that incident, Steph, was Pierre Gasly. And if I'm being really harsh, he's probably the guy I'm blaming for this accident. He seemed to go into a gap that was always going to disappear. But I suppose you have to go for it at the start.
Yeah, it was actually a really, really strange incident. I think Pierre was like locked in the middle when like Raikkonen hit him, and then someone went into the back of someone else. I've literally watched it so many times now, and I can't seem to figure out who I want to give the blame to, because in that accident it was only Gasly and Verstappen that retired, I think, and then we had obviously a couple more shunts down the road. But yeah, it was a really, really strange one. It was like 3 cars going wide, Pierre was getting like squeezed, and then yeah, I have no idea, honestly, why they were going 3 wide into the corner. But yeah, I don't know if I would put the blame on Pierre. I think it was definitely a racing incident and just something that would only happen on the first lap of a race. So yeah, really, really strange one to see. But yeah, exactly. Glad everyone is okay.
Yeah, thankfully everybody all right from that. And thankfully everybody all right from the incidents that happened later in the race too. Kimi Raikkonen taking damage of some kind from that crash, but somehow he was one of the guys who managed to finish the race. We'll get into him very soon. But yeah, that caused a safety car, Dev. And when they got going again, there was an absolutely almighty crash in the midfield. By my count, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. It was 5 cars out in that one crash. I mean, just try and describe it. I mean, it was intense, and it was one of those where it was very unique to this track. It wouldn't really happen anywhere else.
I think there's something about safety car deployments, isn't it, and crashes, and like the opening lap crashes. It's just crazy, because at a time where we thought that Monza was the only great leveler of sorts, you know, reducing a seemingly banal season into a very enthralling one. In comes Mugello out of nowhere and gives us a race to really remember. But it was a crazy race at the start, and as you rightly mentioned, I think there were 4 or 5 cars that took each other out, because there's no other way to call it. Very disappointed personally for Antonio Giovinazzi. He's never really scored any point apart from the 2 points he scored in the first half of the season in the early stages. But it was a race where not only he, but even Latifi looked very promising in the free practice pace, but it just couldn't boil down to anything substantial or concrete. Also, another race that reminds us, especially in terms of this opening lap accident, as to whether people are overshooting in terms of managing their tires. Should we really take a more cautious approach in those tricky situations? We are yet to see, but definitely this has given us a kind of a jolt, though enthralling for fans, but not so much for the drivers who had an accident.
Yeah, it was scary seeing that. I mean, all of our attention was on Bottas and Hamilton at the front, but behind it was just dust and carbon fiber flying everywhere. Ocon, Latifi, Kevin Magnussen, Giovinazzi, and Sainz all going out in that crash. And Peter, I mean, I'm not sure what to do about this. I mean, I said during the race that the FIA should do something about this because Bottas didn't do anything wrong. I thought maybe he kind of screwed everybody over a little bit, but I don't think he did. He got on the power consistently. It wasn't his fault. But because it was so far after the last corner, everybody was jostling position. Everybody was trying to get an advantage in the midfield, and it just snowballed from there, really.
Yeah, I think the confusion you've got is the green light as well as Bottas sort of being in control once the safety car had took a step aside. And so you get that confusion where possibly in the midfield area near the back, they're probably just looking at the lights ahead. And so you've seen some cars trying to sort of preempt how fast, they just sort of drive straight away. Meanwhile, Bottas is in control of how the rest of the grid should sort of go, if that makes sense. So Bottas playing, which I thought was a superb game in that moment where I thought, he was sort of second guessing Hamilton, and as he left, he obviously done very well. The problem behind him is that you have people seeing something else, and I think Magnussen was the first one I think was hit, if I'm mistaken, and on board from Giovinazzi, it looked like Magnussen wasn't even driving. It looked like all of a sudden he was sort of being very dangerous. But then on the other hand, Grosjean, I think, complains about Bottas, or whoever it was in the front is the one that should be at fault. The FIA do need to look at it, but I think it's on the basis that they should either take away that green light or they should remove the control from the race leader. I feel like that's what confused the two.
Yeah, I would go down the route of removing the green light because that automatically gives the impression that racing is going ahead again, and it's not. And I think as soon as one person in front of you starts going, everyone's going to go because you're looking at the person in front of you, basically. You're not looking all the way down the field to see when Bottas is moving. If you're running like 10th, 11th, 12th, you can't see Bottas. You're just going to go with whatever's going on in front of you. And so I think that's where the issue was created, that basically someone in the midfield, I don't even know who it was. I think someone was saying it was Danny Kvyat, and then others are saying someone else. But whoever it is that decided to go first within the midfield is essentially at fault because they should be like watching what's going on ahead of them. And I think that's everyone else's responsibility. You've got to be watching who's ahead of you, and that's how you've got to play the game. And so, yeah, I think the green light is definitely very misleading. And the FIA need to look into whether that's the right call, whether they need to bring in another way of deeming the race raceable again or deeming the race starting again. Because, with a long straight like that, it's really, really difficult to know when to go. To be fair, I'm in a little bit of disagreement. I think that Bottas was playing a bit of a naughty game at the beginning because he was weaving, and even though technically he didn't do anything wrong, he was getting very, very close to Lewis Hamilton. And I think you're right, he played the game and he did it well, and he did manage to eke out a gap between him and Hamilton when the race actually when he started the race again. But yeah, I think he was playing a little bit of a naughty game, and it kind of like backfired within the people behind him, the drivers behind him, and they all kind of concertinaed up, and it culminated in this massive accident, which got rid of a lot of drivers. So yeah.
The string of crashes was so scary to see, especially if you considered the way Carlos Sainz's right hand was literally shaking. We could have actually had a driver losing, his one or two muscles. So the FIA really have their task cut out. This incident should not really go should not escape the eyes of those who have to pass a judgment. And at a time where the sport is taking all possible measures to look after the driver's security, it cannot happen that because of the lapse of one or two or say multiple drivers, the rest of the grid, the remainder of the grid gets to suffer. So yeah, just that point.
I think you're all spot on. And I think it's possible this could happen again as well. I mean, yeah, we're probably not going to go back to Mugello, but another track where we've got a whacking great straight before the first braking zone is Azerbaijan. This could happen again in Baku if another driver tries to pull it. I think you're right, Steph, in that Bottas was playing a dirty game in a way, but at the end of the day, the rules let him do that.
Yeah.
And they have to push the rules to the limit. I think all this could be stopped if they just put a line like the exit of the final corner and just say you have to go by this line, not the start-finish line. All this could have been avoided.
Yeah, and I think with especially a track like this, where there's such a long main straight, it's really dangerous kind of leaving it to the start-finish line because you've got such a long way to the start-finish line and then all the way down to turn one. So it's really dangerous kind of what they did. At the end of the day, you got to place a lot of blame on the drivers as well because they know the rule. They know that it's the person at the front who says go, and it's always been like that. It's been like that for a while, so the drivers should all be very much aware of the fact that that is the rule, and so they need to respect that as well and respect the fact that they can't go until the driver in front of them goes. So whatever rule ends up being in place, it has to be the responsibility of all of the drivers to actually follow that rule and not make up their own rules, because that's not how it goes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be something that's discussed a lot before the next race. I think the GPDA are going to talk about it a lot. But yeah, let us know what you guys think as well. This show goes live on Facebook. Do comment on our live stream if you want, and tweet us at F1 Chronicle as well. Let us know what should the FIA do about this, because we don't want to see this again. Nobody wants to see that many drivers go out like that. Somebody could have got seriously hurt. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Sainz or Ocon. They nearly got hit by a front wing that was flying off. It could be bad. It could have been really bad. But thankfully, nobody's seriously hurt, apart from maybe, Sainz was hurt a little bit, but not seriously. Hopefully he's all right for the next race, though. But yeah, those were the major crashes. The other guy to go out as well was a guy I feel sorry for as well, Lance Stroll, Peter. I mean, he's been doing bits this season. He was up in 4th in the championship. I think he was 4th in the race at the time of his crash, and I don't actually know what happened to him, to be honest with you. It just seemed like a part broke on the car and he speared wide.
Yeah, Lance Stroll has been actually brilliant this season. I had my doubts about him, and all he's done is shut me up, really. And as the season's gone on, he's grown. No, and the thing is, I like it about him because it's one, you genuinely, you can tell when somebody, I either don't like somebody or I actually just want to see them do well. If I'm critiquing them, I just want to see them do better. And Stroll has made me sort of warm to him, where I'm like, you know what, this guy is actually growing up. He's learning as the season goes on. He is a young driver, but he's got the pace and he's putting that racing point at times where it needs to be. I mean, he was 4th in the championship before to the end of today's race, and that's no mean feat. That is pretty good from Stroll. The weird thing about his accident, previous laps before, Sergio Perez had the exact same issue. Didn't spin, but something came flying off underneath his car. I don't know if anybody else saw it, but there was something that flew off underneath the exact same position as where Stroll was. Something flew off, I guess the part of the floor of the car. And I thought, that's weird. Nobody's mentioned anything, but we carried on. And then when it happened to Stroll, of course, it's where they're talking puncher, they're talking, just the rear going as he's on the white line and whatever else. And it looked like a horrible crash. And just to see him get out of that car again was one of those things where you thought, thank God, at least he's okay. And it was quite worrying. I don't know about you guys, but I was really tense this race, and I've not been tense like this for a long time. But every time something was happening, I was like, "Oh no, okay, I don't want to see crashes as such, but you want entertainment." But every time you were seeing these kind of accidents, you thought, "Oh, this doesn't look good." Like even Sebastian Vettel's brake failure last week, where thank God it was where it was, because if he had hit into a wall, God knows what would have happened then. But yeah, Stroll. It's such a shame, we could have seen him comfortably in the mix with Ricciardo and Albon and fighting for that podium place because he had the pace. It was there. Great season so far. Hopefully he just gets his head back down again, has a week off. We come back and he just continues where he left off. But yeah, unfortunate not to finish.
Yeah, he was doing superb to that point. He really was. And through no fault of his own, he's out of the race. It'd be ironic in a way if it was one of the new aero parts that unfortunately fell off, because he got the upgrades and Sergio Perez did not, which is an interesting one. But it will be interesting to see how Stroll gets on alongside Sebastian Vettel next year at Aston. So, good to see how they do. But yeah, Lance Stroll, thankfully, all right. And partly because he spun around a few times as well before he hit the wall, because if he just hit the wall head on, it would have been a really bad one. But he was all right, thank God for that. But yeah, back to the race winner. We don't even mentioned him yet. Lewis Hamilton, Steph. I think it's his 90th win in F1. It wasn't so easy for him. He got overtaken by Bottas on the first restart, but second restart, despite his tyres smoking like a chimney, he got round the outside of Bottas, and that ended up deciding the race.
Yeah, I really loved Hamilton's performance today. I think we saw a rare mistake when he really didn't get off the start line at the very, very beginning of the race very well. And so all of that hard work that he did putting it on pole yesterday was gone to waste, because Bottas had an amazing launch off the start and managed to, lead the race into turn one. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I really, really liked seeing Bottas get a little bit racy, because all we ever see nowadays is Lewis Hamilton putting it on pole, leading into turn one, and then running away with the race. And so it was really, really great to see Bottas actually get his elbows out a little bit, get a bit dirty, and overtake Lewis Hamilton. It's just such a shame that he wasn't able to replicate that on any of the restarts, because we had 2 restarts. So it would have been absolutely brilliant to see Bottas get his elbows out a little bit more, Bottas get a little bit more racy. So yeah, I would have loved to see that. And it's a little bit disappointing that our second Mercedes car is again failing to live up to the expectation of a second driver, and even compared to Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, Lewis again did an incredible race. Didn't make the same mistake twice once we had the other restart. So yeah.
Yeah, but Hamilton doing a really good job. Bottas, potentially another missed opportunity for him, but he did get second place in the end, Dev. It was an okay day for him, but he will be disappointed because he did get ahead of Hamilton at a point. But again, Hamilton finds a way to beat him. It's almost like what can he do? What can he do to beat him?
Well, another day and another exhibition of brutal Lewis Hamilton consistency. Another Grand Slam, the fastest lap, pole position, and the race win, of course. And setting the fastest lap in the dying moments of the race was pretty much taking away, the almost like the anticlimax, because it was such a accident-marred race in the end. But on Bottas's part, I think the best he could do was to just lunge ahead of Hamilton at the beginning of the race, and that was pretty much it. But I think he did well to defend his track position from Daniel Ricciardo. Although I felt bad for the Honey Badger, of course, I really admire him. But I think there's little doubt when all of you say that Valtteri is Waterkello or something like that. But I think that's pretty much it. And this should still give him confidence. He's still running second in the Drivers' Championship, so it's not all over. But he definitely has to come out with a stronger plan. And, first things first, he has to just take the pole position. That's the first thing you have to do, if you really feel confident of winning a race. And it's amazing, the Bottas we saw at the very first race, the season opener, is nowhere to be found. So he's really fallen down in his own expectations also. But I think it was just an okay race once again.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to disagree with you very much. I think Bottas had an atrocious race yet again. Well, atrocious, that's a bit of a mean word. It wasn't that bad. At the end of the day, he was still running second and still finished second. But at the end of the day, Hamilton then edged him for the fastest lap at the very, very end of the race after he backed off, saved all his energy. He was getting caught by Alex Albon in a car that was nowhere near as quick. He was also, Daniel Ricciardo was hot on the back of his car at one point, and it was like he was definitely closing the gap. And it's like, well, if a Renault can be coming up to the back of a Mercedes, like, you're clearly doing something wrong, Mr. Bottas.
Which is why he's Rubens Barrichello Part 2.
Rubens, don't disrespect Rubens like that. But yeah, I just am really disappointed with Bottas at the minute. I think he's 55 points behind Hamilton, which is over 2 race wins. And let's be honest, he's not going to make up that ground because Lewis is as strong as ever. So I think Bottas's championship hopes have gone down the drain. And I think they were down the drain a while ago. And he definitely needs to pull out even better performances that are even adequate. Like, I don't think these performances are adequate of a Mercedes driver. And I really think that Mercedes have made a mistake by signing him again. So I don't know, it's difficult. I'm really, really disappointed with how Bottas is performing at the minute, and I definitely think he could be doing much better. So sorry to jump in and disagree, but...
Totally fine, totally fine.
No, he's a controversial figure as Bottas, isn't he? It's like he's doing enough, potentially, but at the same time, you'd like to see him challenge. In the time since Bottas won his one race this year in Austria, Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen have won just as many races, and how many has Hamilton won? Like 5, 6, 7 or something like that. I don't even know how many now. So,
well, truth be told, the reason why he's been signed up is purely because Mercedes want to keep the constructors title winning.
Definitely.
They want to add, and I think that's the only reason why they have car number 77 in that strong team.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. But not at all even close to the same level as Lewis, of which there is no doubt, absolutely.
But then that only works while they've got the best car on the grid, which they have done for ages. But 2022 they might not do, and if they don't get Russell in the car by then or someone else, they might end up regretting that. But that's yet to be seen. We'll see what happens with all that. Another controversial figure on this podcast has been Alexander Albon, Peter, but he will be happy today. He's done it. He's got his first podium in the sport, finally. I mean, if he didn't get it today, it would have been a very awkward debrief.
It's about bloody time, isn't it? I think we've all been waiting for this moment. Yeah. Let me praise him first. I think he had a good race. Or let me say he grew into the race, because Alex Albon, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but in every weekend you get the tale of two ends with him, because he's not awful throughout the entire weekend. He might have a poor qualifying, but he might have a decent race, or the other way around. But in this race, it's like we saw all of it in one. In one of the restarts, this guy was sliding right back again into the midfield. He thought, bloody hell, Alex, what on earth? What's it going to take for you to sort of come back into this race? To finish third, and the way in which he sort of grew, was it the medium tyre? Was it the hard tyre? I can't remember which tyre it was. But over time, he started growing into those tyres and was overtaking. And his overtake on Ricciardo, superb. I mean, it was risky as hell. And it's something that came out of Ricciardo's book. So I'm sure, Ricciardo watching it happen to him, he probably wouldn't be too happy about it. But again, proud for it. Alex, look, he had a good race. He's on the podium. We finally got him there. Will he move forward from this moment? I doubt it. But it's at least one stepping stone in his calibers. Whether or not it keeps him in that seat is a whole other question as well. And interesting to hear his team radio at the end, thank you for sticking with me. So there's clearly been a lot of pressure on him. And the problem with Alex that I feel, and it's the same I think with Bottas, mentally, these guys they're not focusing specifically on their racing. Alex has been too often is he responding to critics. He's too often looking at everything else other than what he's got right in front of him. He's got a brilliant car that could challenge the Mercedes, and he's not a bad driver himself. He's got the skill. He needs to put the two together, and we could be seeing him overtake. Him and Max could easily be ahead of Bottas come the end of the season if they get their stuff together. But I have no faith in Alex Albon. He's had a great week, a great race weekend today. So I'm going to give him his props today. Big up to Albon on P3.
Yeah, he's finally done it. He's got his podium. Good qualifying as well for him. Qualified fourth. He dropped down, I think, after, I can't remember which start it was, but one of the starts, I think the original start, he dropped down to like 8th. And it was kind of seeming like, it's going to be one of those races. It's going to like one of the old races that Gasly used to have for Red Bull. But he got it. Fair play to him. Yeah. He grew into the race, like you said, and he got third place in the end. He was going to be ecstatic because that could well have saved his seat, to be honest, with the way things have been going.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on from here, whether he does kick on or not. It's going to be very hard for him to get many more podiums just because of how good Verstappen and the Mercedes are. But solid points finishes, that's all he needs.
Don't hold your hope on him, mate. Don't save your breath. Just look ahead at other drivers ahead of that, because Alex Albon, this is the best you're going to get.
Oi, Peter on pole. Oi, no, I will not take any bad mouthing of Alexander Albon.
Listen, you know full well, all of us on here know full well, and the people watching in right now know that Alex Albon getting another podium, you've got to be kidding me. It's not going to happen. Look at the circumstances he gets a podium in. Look at this kind of race we've had. This is the most, after Austria, you thought we're never getting this again. After Monza, you thought that we're never getting this again. So the fact we got 3 of these kind of races, and that's when Alex Albon wants to shine. No. I'm not having none of that.
No, I'm disagreeing. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm not even sorry. I think Alex deserves a lot more respect than he's getting. I think the
Respect.
first podium. Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah.
Flipping
Yeah,
hell.
respect.
Okay,
I think
talk to me.
there's a lot of pressure getting your first podium, especially when it's been taken away from you in Brazil 2019, taken away from you at Austria. So he has had several opportunities, and circumstances, i.e. Lewis Hamilton, have taken those podiums away from him. So yeah, it's been really disappointing in the past. I do think that he can get more podiums, and I think that now he's got this first elusive podium out of the way, the only way is up for him. And I think he'll be filled with a new sense of confidence and like self-belief, and will be able to go ahead and challenge Max and challenge Mercedes and be there to pick up points when Max isn't. Because that's at the end of the day, that's the kind of driver that Red Bull wants. They don't want someone who's necessarily going to challenge Max. They just need someone there to pick up the points for the constructors and to pick up the points when Max isn't there. And that's exactly what Alex did today. So I don't know how you can slag off his performance. I won't have it.
It's very simple. I already said why. And the truth of the matter is this. Red Bull, I agree with you in the sense that, they can't get too, like, sort of head-to-head, alpha males in that team because it's not going to work. But what Red Bull need is an experienced driver. Like I think we mentioned this before. What they need beside Max is somebody who's going to get you the points, because you talked about points. Alex Albon ain't getting you many. You need somebody who knows how to drive a Formula One car, who's got the wisdom, the knowledge of, and the experience of a Formula One car, right? Like, I kid you not, I swear to you, yeah, Kimi Räikkönen would get more podiums in that Red Bull than Alex Albon. By the end of this season, we're going to find Norris is going to get another podium. I could see Stroll with another podium, Gasly with another podium ahead of Albon. And if those guys end up with more podiums than Alex Albon, I'm sorry about respect. You get respect by putting the points on the board, by giving me some podiums, giving me some championships. There are not many drivers on this grid that deserve respect. Let's see what you've got. And let's see what you can do.
So you're telling me that these drivers that are driving around this track at 200 miles an hour are not deserving respect? Is that what you're telling me, Peter or Paul?
Hang on. So are you telling me there's not one driver on this grid you disrespect?
No,
Oh,
I'm 100%. No, there are drivers that I don't believe should be on the grid any longer. For example, Romain Grosjean, who finished last.
Disrespect.
No, I don't think he deserves disrespect. At the end of the day, he's still driving a Formula One car. He still deserves the respect. Like, nobody on that grid deserves to be disrespected, because at the end of the day, they're still getting into this car, pumping out however many G's at this. Like, this is a very high speed track, and it's very, very difficult to drive. So regardless of like how well they are performing, I don't think we should disrespect any of the drivers, because they're the ones that are still getting into that car week in, week out. This is the third weekend in a row. Can you imagine, like, the pain, the stress, the pressure they're under? So yeah, I will not disrespect any driver on that grid. There are drivers that I don't like. Antonio Giovinazzi should not be in Formula One, but I will not disrespect him, because regardless, he's still putting his life at risk. He's still getting in that car week in, week out, and driving that. So yeah.
I'm not saying we should disrespect. I'm saying you got to earn respect. And and I mean it in context. Of course, any of these drivers compared to, say, us guys, they've all got our respect, because what they do, I mean, they are world-class drivers. However, in the context of Formula One, we can still grade amongst these guys. And you will be lucky. I'm telling you this right now. We will be lucky to see Albon on that podium yet again. Lucky.
Let's see what happens. I feel
like we went on a bit of a tangent there. Apologies.
just a bit. I'll pull you back in. Right. So let's see what happens. Let's just leave.
His move on Ricciardo was, to me, the highlight of the race. That was under pressure. He knew if he could not have made that move, the podium was definitely going out of his reach. And so, Steph, does that bring a smile on your face?
Yeah, I love Alex Albon. I also love Daniel Ricciardo. I'm so sad that he didn't get that podium, because I think he drove an incredible race actually. P4 was really, really, really great job for the Renault. So yeah, I think they both would have deserved the podium, and I would have loved to see either one of them on it. So yeah.
Dev, you're right. I think with that highlight, you're definitely right. That was one of the highlights, and I think that's the thing. What I like about Albon the most is simply that he's a risk taker. He puts his heart on his sleeve when it comes to overtaking. He's very skilled at it. Sometimes it's made him crash, but it happens. That's going to happen when you're that much of a risk taker. Some you win, some you lose, and when he wins, it looks brilliant. So that's what I love about Albon. I'll give him that.
Just purely as an observer, what he may want to do is, and before we move to the next point, is that in many races he has fallen further to the back of the grid, and then he has been able to do double the task of playing catch up, which is when he, it's simply that guy who gets the best out of him during adversity. He fell to the back of the grid at the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, and you go to YouTube, and one of the most viewed videos of this year is his charge through the field. He overtook Kimi, both Renaults, and God knows how many cars. So I think that's the only thing. Otherwise, Albon is top quality.
Yeah, it's just them moments, isn't it? When he drops down to the grid, gets a bad start or whatever. It's just them moments. The bad qualifying sometime as well. That's what's costing him. His racecraft, like some of the moves, like you said, you can't question that. Hopefully he'll kick on from this. We'll see what happens. If he gets some more podiums, Steph's right. If he doesn't, Peter's right. We'll see what happens. Time will tell. We can't tell right now. A great day for Daniel Ricciardo. Cyril Abiteboul is going to be a bit relieved. He doesn't have to get the tattoo in a compromising place, potentially. But yeah, 4th place for him. He did all he could. He almost led as well on the second restart, but it just missed out on the podium.
Yeah, it was a tad bit unlucky because, I think towards the very fading moment of the Grand Prix, possibly the pressure of knowing that there was much more powerful Red Bull tailing you got to him, but I think his lunge ahead of Bottas was, to me, the highlight of Daniel Ricciardo's race, in fact, of Renault's race. And let's not forget, apart from the fact that he has countless number of times beaten his teammate in the exact same machine, this is the guy the world expects, everything out of. And weekend after weekend, he has been putting that Renault in a position of authority, unbending authority, especially when contesting with the likes of the 2 Racing Points and also the 2 McLaren. So I think it was a stellar drive, and deservingly so gets him the driver of the day. So more power to the Honey Badger.
Yep, did a brilliant job today, did Daniel Ricciardo, doing Renault absolute massive favours. I'm going to check whether Renault ahead of Ferrari in the Drivers' Championship, Constructors' Championship. It'll be close. I know that after this. While I do that, Peter, we'll talk about Sergio Perez. I mean, a bit of a nondescript race for him in a way today, but he didn't have the same upgrades, obviously, that Lance Stroll did, so it was going to be a bit slower. But in the end, he comes home in P5, avoids all the chaos, and it's a solid result for Racing Point.
Yeah, Perez's aim this year has got to be trying to, just putting a job advert for a new seat next season. It's such a shame, the news that we've got, that he's no longer going to be in that Racing Point. And rather than letting it get to him, he's pulled out a performance like he did today. And it was one of those under the radar ones. It wasn't necessarily anything outstanding, but then when you look at the table, you think, bloody hell, P5, and like you said, he dodged everything. He didn't get into no incidences with anybody. A very mature, stable drive. Maybe at Red Bull, they could do with someone like him.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, you never know. He'd do well in that car. I feel really bad for him that he's out of the Racing Point. It's probably going to end up a Haas or someone like that. It's so harsh on him, I'll be honest. But that's Formula One. It doesn't take any prisoners, unfortunately. Steph, I mean, another person who had a bit of a nondescript race in a way was Lando Norris, 6th place. But I think he'll more than take that after McLaren really struggled around this track this weekend.
Yeah, especially starting outside of the top 10, starting in 11th. I think he'll definitely be happy with what he managed to pull out of the race. So yeah, props to Lando. I was a little bit disappointed to see that he couldn't get past Sergio Perez, because we saw him do an overtake right before he pitted, and then Perez went for the undercut. So he managed to overtake Perez, and I really thought that he was going to overtake Perez again after however many thousand restarts we had. I genuinely thought that Lando Norris would be able to take that fight to Perez in front of him, but unfortunately he was unable to do so. He did build up a big lead as well from Danny Kvyat behind him, who then was not far away when we restarted again. So I think, yeah, it was a bit of no man's land that he was driving in for a while, because he wasn't challenging Perez in front of him towards the end, and he wasn't being challenged by anyone behind him. So it's a little bit disappointing. And I do think Lando Norris could have been further up there. banking on all of the chaos that was going on. I just think he was a little bit unlucky, and he wasn't the biggest reaper of the rewards today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it could have been easily worse though. I mean, obviously
Definitely.
They were struggling this weekend. I'm surprised he didn't go for the undercut. He said he wanted to do it, but he didn't do it in the end. And it could have improved his position in the end, but who knows? There was that many things happened after that. It's really hard to tell. So yeah, solid day for Lando, and he's back to fourth in the Drivers' Championship as well. So fair play to him. Seventh place, Dev, was Daniel Kvyat, and I suppose he had to really respond after Gasly won last weekend. And seventh place in an AlphaTauri is nothing to be sniffed at. A very solid day for the Russian.
Yeah, this is one driver who has been silently working towards improving his own position, especially starting the Spanish Grand Prix. He was 12th, after that 11th, and then once again a very strong finish inside points, as you rightly said. The only AlphaTauri running in points. And I think somewhere the Russian torpedo knows that there is pressure on him, this invisible sword hanging over his head, about that position in the AlphaTauri, because we have so many tremendously talented drivers who are coming through the ranks. And Formula One is always hungry for consuming young blood. And while he has age on his side, there are much more younger and perhaps even promising drivers out there. But I've been a silent admirer of Kvyat because, he makes it very difficult for the likes of the Alfa Romeos and the Williams to get past his car, which is not always the fastest. Yet again, another race which was demonstration of the fact that Alfa Tauri definitely have two good drivers, even if Kvyat is not at the same level as Gasly, the much-loved winner at Monza. But yeah, good day for him today.
Yeah, absolutely. Decent day for Daniel Kvyat. But it was a very disappointing day. The lead Ferrari in Ferrari's 1000th race was Charles Leclerc, Peter, in P8. It could have been worse, to be honest, but despite all that, he did have a very good qualifying. He qualified 5th, but the Ferrari in race pace today, in race trim, it was just nowhere.
They had to take our minds off their pace with something. So whether it was barbecue sauce vinyls, whether it's the whole 1000 thing, whether it's, one thing or another. And to be fair to Charles as well, he was on P3 at one stage. And I sat there thinking, what on earth, this guy, if he's not a world champion before he finishes F1, then F1's completely fixed or something, because he is phenomenal. Honestly, what he's managed to get out of this car, out of this team this year, and then when you compare him to Vettel's performance this year, it's just nothing but uphill struggle for Charles. But I think a season like this, and even make him into he's going to grow into more of a man than you will see in the coming years. There'll be something so mature about him that you will realize all the hardships he's had. It's only going to make him a better driver. He's not had a great day. Ferrari have had a terrible day. They'll still celebrate. I'm sure they're still, probably gone on the lash now just to forget about this season, but also celebrate their 1000th Grand Prix. Because again, 1000 Grand Prix, I think how many have there been in total? Is it 1020 something? To be in all of these races is still phenomenal. And rather than bash Ferrari today, I'm just gonna, sort of raise a toast to them and say, what an incredible achievement to do 1000. Charles not have the best. He did what he could, but his qualifying was great, and then to see him in third was something else. So, hey, look, mixed bag. It's unfortunate for him. I just want to say I second Dev on Kvyat. I've been a fan of his, but I haven't really said anything about him. But he's been very much underneath, just sort of under the radar, but still doing a lot. So, yeah, I just want to second that. But yeah, Charles, it is what it is.
Yeah, he did all he could, really. Did the best he could. It wasn't too much worse in a way, Steph, for his teammate Vettel, but Vettel's qualifying. I think that just kind of shows the fact that he wasn't really that bothered in qualifying. He wasn't saying anything on the radio at all. He just wants to get out of that team. He's been pushed out, he's been forced out, and he just wants to move on to Aston Martin next year.
Yeah, I don't think he could care less about where Ferrari ended up today. I just didn't really see the fiery Vettel that we kind of all know. I don't know where he's gone, but I have not seen him for this entire season. And I'm actually, I'm going to second what Peter said and I think Ferrari did a really, really great job today. At the end of the day, they had both cars finishing in the points, and that's an incredible feat for a car that is as terrible as that. So I think we should, all raise a glass to Ferrari and cheers them, because they actually managed something that they haven't managed this season. Have they both finished in the points this season?
First time for 5 races, I think. First time
See,
since
that's a
Silverstone
long
or
time,
something
and
like
that's not
that.
what we expect from Ferrari. So, yeah, I definitely think that they deserve a big clap from everyone, because that was a no mean feat getting them both in there. And yeah, I think you can definitely see a clear difference between Leclerc and Vettel at the minute. You can just see that Leclerc is on a forward charge, and he's like the future of Ferrari, and that's where they're pinning all their hopes and dreams, and he's getting the most out of that car. He's outperforming it. And then Vettel just literally is doing as much as he needs to do in that car. And that's no disrespect to him whatsoever. I think he's a brilliant driver, but I don't think this is the environment for him anymore. I don't see it ending happily on a happy note. I just want to see him out of that team now. So, but yeah, I think he did a good job today.
He did all right. He got a point. You weren't going to get much better than that.
Yeah.
He avoided all the chaos. That's all you can really say about it. But someone did a really good job today, Dev. It's finally happened. Kimi Räikkönen in the points, and he's got 2 of them as well, despite his 5-second penalty for cutting the pit entry line. He did finish up 9th for the end. Brilliant news for him, and it's huge for Alfa Romeo as well.
I mean, I was very happy to score my maiden points this season. It was good for Kimi. It was good for me as a fan, Started watching Formula One because of him back in 2007, and it's been pathetic to see such a talented driver, if not the youngest, but one of the brightest, to go without points in 8 races, 8 back-to-back races. But yeah, I think the 2 points, and they finally put an end to a nightmare of run which he's had to endure for no fault of his own, because the car just has completely deserted him. It doesn't have the straight line speed. It doesn't hold well in the corners. And but yeah, Räikkönen, full credit to him today, because I think he made an exceptional move on George Russell. Perhaps I may not be wrong to call Russell the sentimental hero of today, that move was made immediately after the second session started, post the second red flag. And from there on, it was going to be Kimi's points to lose, which, luckily didn't happen for the Iceman. And yeah, he should be very happy today. I assume he'll be drunk. He won't remember what happened last night.
Yeah, I think he's probably cracked the vodka open already, Kimi. I will not put it past him. So it's 2 weeks to the next race, so plenty of time to recover. Yeah, it's a great day for Kimi Räikkönen. He's finally on the board. It was horrible seeing him there on 0, but he's finally done it. And it's 2 huge points for Alfa Romeo as well. They remain in 8th in the Constructors, but 4 points now compared to Haas's 1 and Williams' 0. It was nearly 1 point day, though, for Williams, Peter. Russell, 11th again. He was running in the points for quite a bit of the race as well, but that final restart, it just sent him to the back of the grid, and he never truly recovered.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to jump in, and before I start crying, I was my fingers, my toes, they were all crossed for George this weekend. He genuinely had such a good chance, and what better chance was he gonna get when half of the field was no longer running? So I think today was the perfect opportunity for him to capitalize on it, and I think he did everything that he could with the car that he has. I genuinely don't think he could have squeezed anything more out of that car to kind of get that 5-second gap down. I'm so disappointed for him, because I genuinely thought this was the weekend. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be his time will come. He will get his points, and I'm holding out hope for the future.
Yeah, go on, Pete. You can have your say as well. I think you're spot on with everything you said there as well, Steph. It's annoying seeing him without points still.
Yeah, I mean, look, for Russell, we got to wait till next year, if not the year after that, because, like you said, he did everything he could. Even when the circumstances are like this, Williams does not get into the points. We've had this in Austria. We're having it again here. And, I did feel sorry for the guy. I wasn't surprised, because when I saw him in the points, I said, I even put it in the group. I messaged in the group. I said, look, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's 2 Ferraris behind him for a start. They'll get ahead of him. And so, yeah, and it proved to be the case. And that's nothing negative on Russell. He's doing everything he bloody can. It's just such a shame his restart was poor and had to sort of make up for it. And he did everything he could. So, yeah, fair play to Russell. Unfortunately, no points again this weekend. And, hopefully he gets some at the end of the season. It's just best hope.
Let's hope so, yeah. He did quite well at Russia last year, I remember, before his brakes failed. So hopefully he can repeat that again. It's not easy to pass in Sochi either, as we know very well. So you never know. Something could happen there. I mean, we mentioned him a little bit through the show, Dev. Romain Grosjean, I mean, I think at least three of us are in agreement that he probably shouldn't be in F1. And I think this race really highlighted it. I mean, he was running in the points for a bit, but he just fell behind and he was just running at the back for pretty much all of it.
Yeah, for a driver who has so much of experience on him, and who definitely has seen much better days in the past, you know, when he was alongside Raikkonen at Lotus, this is not the driver that one would have expected him to be at this stage in his career where he's not getting any younger. So, and I don't know, I mean, this was an excellent chance to stand up and make himself counted, because for what happened in the opening laps skirmish, which consumed Magnussen completely and put him out, it would have been a great chance for Grosjean to do something for the team. But really, and I mean, when you actually compare the Haas race pace to the Alfa Romeo, you feel that the American team is much better. But then when it comes to the Grand Prix, I think they are just, you know, their weaknesses are just exposed. So another opportunity lost. I'm not really sure what might happen at Russian Grand Prix. Sochi is not his greatest track by performances. So they are really uncertain times for the French-Swiss driver.
Yep, still not scored. He's one of the three drivers not to score along with the two Williams guys this season. So I think he may well be replaced with Perez next year if Perez doesn't go to Alfa Romeo potentially. But we'll see what happens. For me, he's just not performing well enough. I got nothing against the guy. He's a really nice person.
Yeah.
I think he should probably become a chef instead of being an F1 driver, to be honest. It seems like he's a very good cook, I'll be honest. His wife's a lucky woman. So, but yeah, so let's get on to the driver of the day to round out the show today. This is a really tough one to pick, I'll be honest. I was going to give it to Ricciardo if he got the podium, but I'm going to be a bit sentimental and potentially also partly because of the argument that happened earlier. I'm going to give it to Alexander Albon, his first podium in F1. Some great overtakes. I mean, there's a few other contenders for sure, but I don't know who I'll give it to otherwise. Peter, your head's in your hand. Go on. Who are you picking?
I'm gonna go for Danny Ricciardo because I think he was brilliant all race. My only issue with Albon is simply this, because Dev made this point earlier as well. He's making mistakes and then it kind of looks good come towards the end of it because he sort of recovers from what he's doing. Yes, he's working 2 times harder, but he created the mistakes himself. So I'm not going to give him driver of the entire day when he's done some bad but recovered well. Yes, it's a podium at the end of the day. He done superb, but in terms of like who was almost flawless, I have to give it to Danny today and getting that Renault in 4th, and it should have been in 3rd.
Fair enough. Danny Ricciardo's definitely a good shout for it, Steph.
I'm going to agree with Peter for once in my life. And I do think that Danny Ricciardo really did deserve driver of the day today. I think he was flawless. I don't think there was anything further he could have done to basically get on the podium. His defensive driving was great, and he did a really great job of attacking the drivers who were in front of him. Like, I think he started in 8th. 8th to 4th is no mean feat. So I think he definitely did a really great performance. I'm so sad that we didn't get to see him on the podium, but I think that out of everyone, he had the most solid race, the most flawless race, because I think everyone around him had mistakes, and I don't think that Daniel Ricciardo had mistakes today. I think he did as much as he possibly could, and so that's why he's my driver of the day.
Fair enough. I'm starting to think I should have chose Ricciardo now, to be honest. I'm not changing my opinion. Go on, Dev. Who are you saying? I think you're going to go for Ricciardo too, aren't you?
I'm slightly more large-hearted, so I have 2 drivers of the day. First is Alexander Albon for sure. You know, what a feeling that is to secure your first F1 podium. But second to Raikkonen, simply for the fact that, if this turns out to be his final year in Formula 1, it will not be a year where he did not finish in points. And so full credit to Kimi for not maintaining social distancing from 0 points and, emerging with something.
To be fair, Kimi deserves driver of the day purely for his radio messages.
Oh my God. When he was getting told about his...
For what?
Just avoid
You've got a 5-second penalty. For what?
He must have known. He's absolutely iconic.
what was so funny is that the engineer's just repeating to him that you've got a 5 second, but he's not, that's not the question he's asking. I was sitting there thinking, come on, guys, tell him. Honestly, his radio he's got the best team radios I think of all time, and for that alone,
they've done everything to screw his chances in Formula One. In one of the races, they release him to a point where he runs over a mechanic's leg. Today, the pit stop was the slowest at 10 or 30 seconds. So full credit to Raikkonen, it deserves a drink.
He was a lap down, I think, as well. I think he was allowed to
Yeah.
himself. Like,
him and Grosjean were a lap down on the
And he
final
lost some
restart.
body work for good measure, and I'm quoting Mr. Martin Brundle. This is a standard line. You lost some body part for good measure. Yeah, so Kimi lost it in the opening lap scrap, right? He was a victim of that scrap. So still, he managed to finish in points. So well done.
And not to forget either as well, earlier in the season, was it race 1, in fact, in Austria, when the mechanic didn't put his front right properly, and then he's gone out, and then all of a sudden that front right's he's had a shocking year.
The car going in some way, going another way.
Honestly, he's fought against every kind of war you could think of. Fair play to Kimi Räikkönen, man.
At 40 years of age as well. That's got to be remembered. I mean, he had to do 2 restarts. It looked hot.
Yeah.
Most people would really struggle to do that. And he's 40, nearly 41. It's amazing. And I think he finished as the lead Ferrari-powered car on the road as well. He was ahead of Leclerc. He only went behind because of the penalty. So
5 seconds.
Say what you want. That's bloody impressive.
And that would have been 2 weekends in a row, because I'm sure last weekend he was the first fastest Ferrari engine as well.
Yeah.
Because the Ferrari car's DNF'd.
Who gives a damn? It counts.
Fair play to him. Yeah. So Kimi Räikkönen's another good shout. But let us know your driver of the day as well. Let us know in the live stream. Tweet us at F1 Chronicle as well. We do have an official store for merchandise. If you guys want to check that out, we do have custom t-shirts and mugs like Dev is modeling for us very nicely. If you want to get that or in a different color, just go to the F1 Chronicles website, f1chronicle.com. We broadcast this live on Facebook, like I've said several times now, so be sure to like our Facebook page, F1 Chronicle. We're also available on the website, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, Pocket Cast. Just search for the F1 Grid Talk and all those. We've got a big back catalogue of shows of over 50 episodes now, including an interview with Mario Asola, the head of Pirelli Motorsport, Tiregate, Ayrton Senna, things like that. So be sure to check all of those out. And yeah, we will be back to preview the Russian Grand Prix 1 week today. It'll be going out live on Facebook, and the Wednesday after that, it'll be going up on the website and all the streaming platforms. Thank you very much for joining us. See you for the next one. Goodbye.